to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Planet of the Ood, written by Keith Temple and is directed by Graham Harper. This story was originally planned to be the second episode of Series 4, David Tennant, the 10th Doctor's third series. However, due to Russell T Davies believing that the concept of this story are incredibly bleak and dark, he decided to switch the order around so that a story where Donna Noble is a little more light-hearted, a little bit more Catherine Tatey, would appear as the second episode, because this episode was apparently too dark. An episode about an alien race with tentacles for mouths is apparently darker than an episode about one of the greatest catastrophes in human history. This story has a lot to say about the concepts of businesses and it's a story about basically slavery. It's about slavery. There's nothing really that you can hide from that. It's clear where this story's inspiration comes from. The Ood race are a slave race, and basically Donna, who is getting to see the universe, basically learns that it's still not perfect. Humans are basically scum wherever they go in whatever time period, and she learns a bit of truths about herself, humanity, and the Doctor and how he lives and his relationship with the universe. So it's a very politically heavy story, something which links heavily with Russell T Davies' own interests of Doctor Who stories tackling politics, specifically about like corporations, businesses, and all that. That's kind of just Russell T Davies' style at this point. And so, yeah, this story also reintroduces the Ood, an alien race that had appeared before in the second series episode, The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit. A two-parter in which they get possessed by the devil. And here they have a reappearance after they were a very popular... Well, that story was very popular, but I don't think the Ood were the popular part. The popular part was talking about the devil and just the claustrophobic and haunting and almost the awe in that story. I don't think anybody came out of that story and was like, do you know what was the best part? The Ood. They did leave themselves for much humour in that story. So now I think that's why Russell T Davies brought Keith Temple to come in and write for this story. As far as I am aware, this is his only television story. He had written a Doctor Who comic for the Comic Maker video game on the BBC website, in which he wrote a story about the beast from that story as well, oddly enough. So he is heavily linked with that story, despite him not actually writing that story. It's really strange how another writer is connected so heavily to a different writer's piece of work. I don't know what that has to add to anything. I just thought there was like a nice little fun, interesting little detail. So, this story also has small little references to the first Doctor story, The Censorites, as Russell T Davies has stated in multiple interviews when Series 2 has been produced, that he'd like to think, like in his headcanon, that the Ood and the Censorites are linked somehow. They are very similar species. These weird, like, big-headed, bald-like alien races that have telekinetic, a very slight hold in telekinetic. They also communicate with something which tubes on, is connected into their body parts, some sort of technology. With the Oods, it's that thing which they put to their heads, and the Ood, it's the orb, the spheres they have, which they also use to kill people in in the stories that they appear in. This would be their only real story that they get, and this would be the last story they really focused on. Sure, they get other appearances later down the line, like Water of Mars, The End of Time, and The Doctor's Wife, but this is the last time the Ood will get a prominent role in a Doctor Who story. Something which I was a bit disappointed with. It seems like with their last story and this story, they, despite having a very simple concept of them being a slave race, have a lot going for them. Like in one story, it was the devil using them as pawns, and now here it's about all the corporation stuff. I just realised I haven't even gotten into the actual narrative itself. But it's just so, like, there's so much apparent, like, the two writers that have written for Oods have given them such a baseline, but also a great idea of variety. But I wish that we would get a full-on Ood story again. Chris Chibnall, if you're listening, make that happen. I'm recording this in March, so maybe there's an Ood story in Series 13. I have absolutely no idea by this point. So anyway, let's get on to the actual story at hand. Right off the bat, you can really feel that this story was supposed to be the second episode. Donna and the Doctor have are completely thrilled by the fact about the TARDIS's capabilities. The Doctor has set the TARDIS randomizer on to prevent something which has not been seen since Sharda, from our point of view, something which got played a heavy part in the fourth Doctor series, revolving around the key to time. The Doctor activates the randomizer here, meaning that when they step out the TARDIS's doors, it can be any time, any place, any planet. Even the Doctor has no idea. And the scene with Donna being absolutely thrilled, it's like, oh my god, I can't believe this. Does feel like this should have been episode 2, because that thrill, that excitement, that, oh my god, I can't wait, this is going to be amazing, feels like, you know, and there is a small reference. It's like she says something like, the past is one thing, but this, going into the future, that's amazing, which I kind of feel like was edited in after the realization that this was going to be the third episode now. So, there's just that thrill, that bump, and David Tennant and Catherine Tate here, they are phenomenal. The connection between these two actors are phenomenal. In fact, you can easily see why these actors not only work so well in Doctor Who, but they keep acting in things together. They did a Shakespeare Much to Do Nothing. If you want to see funny Shakespeare, watch David Tennant and Catherine Tate do Much to Do About Nothing. It's fantastic. And also David Tennant has also made a few appearances on the Catherine Tate show. I believe it was after this point. He did one before, I believe, and then he did a few ones after when he plays the Ghost of Christmas Present. I know I'm going on a tangent there, but my main point here is that these two actors together are just, they bounce off each other, and the fact, I think one of the main reasons is that their personalities in real life do actually affect the characters. As David Tennant is a massive fanboy, as we've later discussed. David Tennant is one of the first actors who was an actual Doctor Who fan and actually became part of the role because he trained as an actor, and he trained as an actor because he was such a fan of Doctor Who, which is just mental. And so he plays his Doctor, so that, like, you know, he knows everything, and he basically plays around like he knows everything. He knows how the routine works, essentially. But Catherine Tate, not, you know, she's not a fan of Doctor Who, but she's not well versed. You can clearly tell that by her personality, that she doesn't seem like the person who would like heavy-hitting sci-fi like this, and, you know, that's perfectly acceptable. But and she only really did it because it's Doctor Who. It's one of the biggest roles. You're not going to turn Doctor Who down, are you? If you're an actor, and obviously working with David Tennant must be a dream for her as well. But that means Donna has a completely different viewpoint, and Catherine Tate can play these elements phenomenally well because she is an actress, she is a person, also is kind of new to all this. And a great example is when they step out those doors. Donna is thrilled, she's excited, she cannot believe, like they could be on a different planet. She opens the door, she sees this snow, this snowy, magnificent landscape just covered in snow. And her only thoughts, is that it's bloody freezing. No, I don't think any other companion would have that reaction. Sure, they'd be like complaining, they'd be like, oh no, it's freezing. But they would be like, marvel at it. Donna just does not care. And I love that when the Doctor steps out of the TARDIS, he basically goes on to another one of his rants about, one of his speeches about how amazing the universe. Look at you, Donna Noble, you born in Cheswick, and now you're here, citizen of the Earth, or standing on a different planet. And he turns around, and Donna's just gone. And there's this human moment where the Doctor's like, Donna? And she steps out, and she's wearing this big, huge, woolly coat, and it's like like a child. Like the sleeves are too big for her, and she's just, because she's just freezing and cold. And they also witnessed this giant spaceship fly over their heads as Donna is just fascinated by it and is like, you've got a box, he's got a Ferrari, come on, let's go. That's one of those like quotes in Doctor Who that I constantly use. It's like if I have like two friends and I competing and stuff, and one of them is far superior, I go, you've got a box, he's got a Ferrari. So a lot of little moments there. And then we get introduced to this this corporation on the other side. I forgot to mention that in the pre-title sequence, the cold opener, we see an Ood facturer basically having this advertisement. The advertisements are played up there a bit corny, but I think that's kind of the point. It's a silly, futuristic advertisement kind of thing. To when one of the workers gets killed by a Ood with an Ood with red eye. Now, the red eye kind of implies demon, devil connections, as the reason they had red eye in the last time they appeared was because of the devil. However, you might be disappointed to learn that this story does not revolve around the devil in any way, shape or form. The red eye is actually a side effect of something much larger in terms of this plot, in terms of this corporation and this business practice, which I don't know how to feel, because in one way it does connect it to that story, but then it turns out it has nothing to do with it, and none of the other characters bring it up. I think there was not a fault on the writing. The writing, I don't think really established a difference. I think that's mainly due to issues with the prop department or the makeup department on making the red eye just the same thing as when the Ood were possessed by the demon before. But anyway, back to where we were in the episode. Before Donna and the Doctor get to the corporation at hand, they actually witness a Ood basically dying in the middle of a snowstorm, and they try and talk to it. And what I really love about this scene is Donna. Now, Catherine Tate is known for, her kooky, silly performance and blah, blah, blah. But when she calms down, when she cools down, when she is focused and she's playing these emotions, which she does in this story, like, holy hell, Catherine Tate can act, and act really good. Like, I love how just sympathetic she is to this poor creature that she's met, and even though he's got this funny appearances with the Ood, like, she's still so heartwarming. I love the bit where, like a joke as well, she doesn't realise, like, 'cause the Ood is talking through the sphere, and so she puts her mouth to it, and it's like, my name's Donna Noble, and this is the Doctor. The Doctor's like, no, you don't have to do that. Donna's just like, oh, I'm sorry. And she tries to talk to him. It's like, don't worry, he's a doctor, he's an alien doctor. We will help you, we will get you better. And she's just so sympathetic about it. And sure, that's something like any other companion could do. Any other companion is like this. But it's the fact that, she's been so giggly, so bubbly, and then all of a sudden she's turned it down just because she's seen an innocent creature in pain. Just phenomenal. And I especially like when basically this Ood is dying, but just before he dies, he goes red-eye, he gets up and he's and then he collapses dead. And the Doctor's kind of like nervous because he's like, he knows that Ood with red eye means trouble. And Donna just goes up to it and closes its eyes, and it's like, sorry, we're so sorry about this. We wish we could help, but it's too late. That's just absolutely like brilliant. That's one of my favourite scenes. It's phenomenal. But so the Doctor and Donna go into this corporation. They're having some sort of meeting. The Doctor and Donna use a psychic paper to get in and basically pretend that they are visitors. Where basically there's this new. Basically, the Ood Corporation is under fire for not getting enough money at the moment. So they're basically trying to do this like massive pitch sale, and so this is the scene in which Donna basically gets introduced to this futuristic world. We learn that this is the year 4000 and something, I can't remember, which astonishes Donna. But she also learns about the Ood, that they are a slave race, that they are a race which apparently were born to serve humanity, something which was established in the last appearance, which it sounds like the Oods just kind of let them use them as slaves. And Donna kind of points out that this is not right. This is disgusting. What do the Ood say? What do the Ood get to say about it? And she tries to talk to one of the Ood. I especially like how the Doctor sometimes, he does try and get his companions to see the point of view of the civilization they're going in, and the Doctor does kind of do this here. There's especially a line later down the line where Donna basically realises, like, this is just exactly like Earth's past when we sold slaves. And the Doctor's like, it's not so different from your time. Who do you think made your clothes? And Donna is just like, how dare you? But like the slowly realisation that like it's not really that much different from her time is a big part in this factor. And I think that's what makes most of Series 4 so great, is that each episode has something to say about us now through the context of Donna Noble, who is used to our way of living, of our way of thinking. And when she experiences all this, there's stuff that challenges her ideas and what she thinks about the universe and the world at whole. In the previous story, The Fires of Pompeii, it's about, how she can't change the past. And even though she is like, what do you mean we can't change the past? We have a time machine, let's just go and save everyone, hooray. But the Doctor basically teaches her that you can't do that. You've got to let history take its course sometimes. And it's horrible, it's disgusting. But she also teaches the Doctor something as well, that in that story. I'm going on a little tangent. Let's get back on this story. In this story, it's basically learning that humanity, despite being highly advanced technology, highly advanced in almost every capacity, still has the capacity of cruelty and to be funded through slavery and torture. And what I really like about this aspect of the story is how the Doctor kind of he basically he helps Donna basically understand this mindset. But he's also kind of, if you watch this story, focus mostly on the Doctor and what he's doing in this story. He is slowly basically pushing Donna to be more active. There's a scene in which she's talking to an ood and is like, she's talking to the ood and basically asking it, "Are you okay? Do you need any help?" And the ood is like, "I do not understand, miss." And Donna starts joking. It's like, "Why do you say miss? Do I look single to you?" But the Doctor's like, "Back to the point. Come on, ask the questions that you want about the slavery and stuff." Basically, he can see that Donna's onto something. He can see that Donna's got this interest that will reveal humanity in a different light to her. But the Doctor doesn't like just stop her and basically explain that this is how the world is, like it has happened in a few occasions. The Doctor just doesn't full on go for it as well, because like in other few occasions, I think, no, he lets Donna discover it herself and basically helps her along the way. This is a Donna story, but the Doctor's role in it is vitally important. It's also here around this scene where we learn about the Ood sphere and how that it's in the second great and bountiful human empire, something which I don't think it was mentioned since series 1, so there's a nice connection there. We also then learn that it's next to the sensor sphere, which is connected to, of course, the sensorites, which I mentioned before. And we also have a little reference to the bees that disappear in. I don't like how this is implemented in this story. It's literally Donna mentions it as something weird, and the Doctor just is like, "Yeah, that is weird about the bees," as if, like, "Oh, I was thinking about that. That's kind of interesting, but I'm not gonna look into it." We'll wait until the series finale, which is really off-putting. It is also important to mention that this is the first story where, in series 4, where the missing planet storyline, which also ties in throughout series 4, is not mentioned in any way, shape or form, mainly because the story is set on the Ood planet itself, so you can't have it disappear and be set on it as well. So there's that. Now, the main head of this corporation, the guy who runs this Ood slavery company, he has come to the base to basically to sort out this red eye. Basically, a bunch of Oods are basically going wild with red eye and killing some of the workers, the humans. But there's also a new form of red eye, which is called rabid, where they're basically gone crazy and they're like, make some really stupid, silly noises. But they don't. That version of it doesn't really come into play. It's kind of strange how they mention it's like red eye has a second form, but it doesn't really tie into the plot. You get the Oods going, so it's fun, silly and fun. So the Doctor and Donna are investigating, whilst the company basically learns that they don't exist. They are false. Their identifications were forged. So then we get like a chase scene in a warehouse where the Doctor and Donna are looking through this warehouse where they just see Oods just in these containers, these massive containers. This is where the prominent line of "the circle must be broken," something which had been mentioned throughout this episode, but here it becomes a much more bigger part as this is where they basically realise all the Ood believe in this circle must be broken philosophy, which they have no idea what it's about. But the company have basically discovered the Doctor and Donna there. Donna gets quickly captured and being taken to a container of Ood, which seem to be suffering from red eye, as the Doctor is escaping. Now, this story, as I mentioned, is directed by Graham Harper. His action scenes are phenomenal. I mean, this scene, let me tell you how great a director he is. This scene, if you think about it logically, is completely inadequate. The claw that the villain uses, though for the most part can like bash and like hurt the Doctor, smashing him, the Doctor could easily avoided it if he just stepped to the side. And for the most part, when it's upwards, it's out of claw, so the Doctor could have easily just escaped through it anyway. But the directing of it, when you watch that scene, doesn't play into your mind. With David Tennant's long jacket, making him easily visible in long shots as the claw ravels his on him. Just Graham Harper just deserves so much props, and I'm so grateful that he has directed some of the best looking classic Who stories and some of the best looking new Who stories. Graham Harper, man. Graham Harper. What a legend. Just watch the story for Graham Harper's directing. Now, so the Doctor and Donna get captured. Donna gets released from Red Eye, but then there's this outburst as the Red Eye starts killing the people, and one of the workers there basically believes that the entire place is contaminated with Red Eye. We're just going to have to slaughter them all. And then this is where the Doctor and Donna have their first real interaction with the main villain, the leader. I can't remember the name of him, but he's played by that guy from Blackadder. Now, he is a great actor, and he's mainly known like Catherine Tate for his humorous works. Here he does kind of play it up a bit. He has this whole thing with stress. He has hair tonic, which makes his hair grow, but he's stressing, and he's like this clear villain who funds slavery and has no remorse when it comes to killing any Ood whatsoever. But something doesn't work about this character. He isn't particularly that memorable, apart from a few scenes where the acting in it is turned up to 11, where he's just so silly. I like the scene in which there's a scene later on where he gets these explosives, and then he just turns to this guy and is like, "We're gonna blow it up." He has like he has like two people following him. This kind of science guy who works, basically talking about like the science of the Ood or something, and he has a Ood servant that helps him, and he seems to be the most loyal Ood, as he doesn't seem to be turning Red Eye in any way, shape or form. Ood Sigma, which will appear in other Doctor Who episodes, fun fact. And so the Doctor and Donna, they escape after a massive outbreak of Red Eye goes into the entire company, killing hundreds upon hundreds of workers. This is a rebellion. This is something which, the Ood are coming out. They're coming out just to kill humanity. And what's really great is that originally this just seems to come out is just pure rage. Just nobody understands. Like, why are the Ood doing this? Why are the Ood turning Red Eye? What's going on? What's wrong with them? Why are they killing everybody? What's changed so far? But the Doctor and Donna soon discover, because the Doctor can hear a telepathic singing. He heard it earlier on in the episode when they found the dying Ood in the snow, and he can hear it again, but it's absolutely loud. It's burning his head, and we get one of the most iconic scenes of the series 4, in which they basically discover some unprocessed Ood who are not slaves, or at least not slaves yet. And they discover they're holding something in their hands before they have the orb, and it turns out they have a second brain, and it's absolutely it's just disgusting, but the Ood all cuddled up in a corner in a cage just looks so pitiful And the Doctor basically explains it's like these are Ood in captivity. That's what that song is. It's the song of captivity. And Donna's like, I can't hear it. Do you want to? Yes. And the Doctor puts his hands on Donna so that open her psychic connection so she can hear the song. That music might be a little bit played up, but that music with the shot of Donna basically pressing her face to the cage as tears run down her eyes, she just feels the sadness and pain of these poor creatures. That is just an amazing scene. I also realised as well that I've gotten some scenes mixed up because that leads into the scene where the Doctor and Donna meet the boss. So this vlog isn't accurate when it comes to when scenes are taking place in the story. I do apologise. Now that scene is powerful, but the realisation is that the Ood weren't born to slavery as they've been told, as they've learned. These are people, these are creatures who are originally, they want their freedom, they want to live out their own lives in prosperity, in peace, in a world where they can just be themselves, but they basically get mind controlled, they get lobotomized in a way where they believe that this is just how the status quo is, and they are born to serve humanity. Think about that in terms of real world and racism and slavery itself. How we basically have like these propagandas back in the old days where it's like these people were born to be your slaves, they were made to be you, and sure that that's a horrible reflection on ourselves, especially how even to this day there are still government sanctions that are very roots in racism and sexism and all these horrible things. But what we don't kind of realise is that sometimes people get hypnotised, people are lobotomized, shall we say, in a way, to go up against their own values, their own processes, and the people who would be the slaves might have easily been freed, but they've got this mindset that we're born to serve, we're born to be slaves, we're born to be the poor, we're born, there's the rich and the poor, but we were born poor, so we can't touch these people, we can't think. It's it's so relevant, and it's so politically charged, and the more I grow up and the more I watch the story, the more the meanings of the story are more prominent in my mind, and so that is really, really, really cool. It's not subtle. I know a lot of people. There are a few people who don't like the story, not like a lot, but in terms of like a larger fan base, there are a select few people who, I make it sound like there's only like one or two, like a group of people who don't like the story, and that's completely fair, that's your own opinion. But one of the criticisms of the story is that it's not subtle at all. This story is in your face about slavery. It's about the politics in the narrative, and sure, that's okay if you don't like that stuff, but you're kind of missing the entire point. It's supposed to be in your face. It's supposed to be heavily political. That's the point of the story. It's about our characters having their eyes opened to these events which they just cannot close off. They can't just go back and be like, oh yes, look at you nice slave people who are completely harmless, completely innocent. No, it's something which after this event it changes the thing, and you cannot go back. It's in your face. Yes, and if that's what you don't like about the story, that's completely fine. But that's kind of the point of the narrative, if you point it in. I will say, however, there are some really silly moments which does kind of underline, like I said, with the villain and the advertisement in the start. But there's a mystery going around. Why is the Ood turning red eye all of a sudden? Does it have something to do with something which the boss is keeping in the basement? Something which is somehow connected to this, to their way of connecting with the Ood, their way of keeping the Ood docile. And so they basically go down into this basement and discover a massive hive brain that the Ood are all psychically connected to. I love the idea, but the effect on it and just the main concept of this giant brain is so silly. It's so stupid that it does kind of take away a bit of the ideas of the story as we go in. We've gone from this hard-hitting sci-fi political thriller about slavery to, oh look, it's a giant brain. Oh yes, and the villain points his gun up and he's like, I can move off-world. I can live peacefully in a small little planet somewhere off the coast or something like that. Something which, happens with a lot of villains. It's really cliched, it's really dull and uninteresting. But this ending does something extremely odd, to say the least. Essentially, we slowly learn that there's a circle electrical charge stopping the telepathic circuits to the other Ood. The circle must be broken, and that's what they were trying to do. And the brain is basically adapted so that a small bit of its kinetic energy can get out to the other Ood and is creating this red eye form. Except for this one Ood Sigma, who is gets the patient side of the brain. He kills, he hurts people, but in a way which relies on vast amounts of patience. And he has, because he has slowly been poisoning the boss. With what? To kill him? No, not exactly. To make him more acceptable to their mind control abilities, maybe? No. As the guy starts choking up and he's like, are you poisoning me? And then this compound. When David Tennant does the second Doctor, oh dear. That is just, the way David Tennant plays that, it's such a... I don't know if that was supposed to be a reference to the second Doctor, but when I hear that, I just hear Patrick Troughton, and it's just like, oh, that's just so cool. This is a small little reference. And there's this effect, a gorgeous effect, but my God, for a family-friendly show, it's pretty gruesome, in which this guy, basically, he bends down and peels the skin off his scalp, revealing this disgusting underskin under his head. And it turns out the Ood have been poisoning him with this compound which is slowly turning him to an Ood. I love Donna's reaction to this. Her face, she's just like, they turned him into an Ood. Yeah, and then the Don, and that is just, it's just such a wild and ridiculous concept that they turned the boss into an Ood. Maybe there's some sort of political idea there that, the boss is when they become normal people when they're taken out of power, and that's what the Ood represents, the minority, and so Ood Sigma is like, we will look after him, we will take care of him. And that is ridiculous, and it does kind of take away from another aspect of this scene, which is actually vitally important to our characterizations and the overall ideas that this story plays around with. Because you see, earlier on in the story, when Donna basically learns about the song and how painful it is, she basically asks the Doctor to take off her mind, and she basically reveals to the Doctor that she used to feel like coming with the Doctor would be this magnificent, amazing journey of going to these planets, having fun, fighting monsters. Yeah, sure, but mainly it's going to be laughs and fun and exploring. But no, it's a revolution. It's revealing that the world that she lives in is just not as kind as she thought, and you can't just turn your back. You've got to stand up. You've got to fight for people who might not have the power to do so and doing well, but she can't handle this. The idea that like her world is any world really is based on some sort of dark underlining which people profit from. She can't handle it, and she asks the doctor at one point to take her home. When this is done, take me back to my home world. Take me back to Earth. But here, there's a small little moment which is vitally important, but like I said, gets kind of forgotten about by the fact that the villain just turned into an ood, in which Donna is like, at this point, seeing the boss, this horrible character, get turned into a ood and they're going to look after him, she's just like, I don't know what's wrong or right anymore. They turned him into a ood. Sure, he might have been a bad guy, but they had to turn him into an ood? I don't know what's wrong or right anymore. And the doctor basically just goes, believe me, it's better that way. People who believe they are right and wrong is like this boss character who tries to justify everything. Small little moment, but it helps with the ideas and the narrative that Donna and the Doctor are going out throughout this adventure. So the story ends with basically all the Ood being free and ending the slavery of the Ood as they're basically starting these plans to bring everybody back. And the Ood basically send off to the Doctor before basically saying that your song's going to end soon. There's a room in our song for you, but I feel like your song's going to end soon. This is going to tease the final of the 10th Doctor. It's important to note that at this point, David Tennant had announced that he is leaving the show back in 2008. However, he had a series and then he had 4 specials before he would actually leave the role. So they kind of teased something in advance. And going by the chronology of Doctor Who, this is way too early to be like, your song's going to end soon, you're going to die. They treat the 10th Doctor's death like an actual death, which we'll get onto when we talk about the end of time. But basically they tease something here. They tease that the Doctor's song is going to end soon, something which will play on in later stories down the line. The Doctor asks Donna, does she want to stay, or does she want him to take her back home? And the Doctor, she's like, no, let me still travel with you. Come on, let's get on to our next adventure. As the Ood starts singing and waving goodbye to the Doctor and Donna. And that is Planet of the Ood. Overall, there are some great ideas here, some great concepts, and some really hard-hitting scenes. The story has a very purposeless plot, if that makes any sense. It's a story which has an idea, it knows what it wants to tell, it knows what it wants to say, and it is not backing down. It's putting this right in front of you that humanity can be absolutely horrible, and we do sometimes just try to ignore them. And this is the story in which Donna basically learns, right, we can't just turn our back from this. We have to fight where we can. Help where I can, will not fight. That's a reference to the 8th Doctor, if you didn't know. But anyway, but there are some sillier moments. Some scenes are played way too corny. Graham Harper's directing, for the most part, like 99% of the story looks absolutely gorgeous. I love the snowy setting of the outside world, and I love the industry feeling on the inside, with these like coloured walls and the pop art Ood stuff in the background. Absolutely gorgeous. So overall, it's a really great story. I can understand why it's not a lot of people's favourite. But I say try it out, have it fun. You might not enjoy it. You might find it a bit weak. But I think that there will be a lot of people who would watch this story and have a lot of fun with it. So anyway, that's Planet of the Ood. So join me next time where Owen Harper must learn what life is like now that he is essentially dead and there is no way of telling when his last breath will be. So join me next time for A Day in the Death. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.